Hello, everyone. Welcome to a BoardCast network. My name is Dat Win, and here we have.
Ryan Valdez, what's going on?
We are going to bring you a nice interview about an event that Ryan held a couple of weeks ago. It's a virtual board gaming event that he held with him and his friends, and we would like to actually just hear more about your experience. How you doing today, Ryan? How's everything going?
Doing okay. We're in the middle of the week. We're still, trying to get by with everything going on, but make it.
Oh, it's great to hear. Great to hear. Look, we always do this little icebreaker question. The icebreaker question I'm going to have for you is, what was the last board game that you've played, and how was that experience like?
So, I guess, actually, so one of the games I got recently was it's called Arion, and it's actually a solo game. So, with the pandemic going on, it's hard to get board games out on the table because you can't get together with people. So I heard of Arion. I heard it was a really good solo experience, and I actually got to play a few games of it. I really liked it. I enjoyed it. It's quick. It's got a lot of good decisions in it, and it was fun.
I'm assuming it's a space game.
It's not, although I do love space games. Like, I would look at my board game collection, and I think like half of them are space themed. But Arion is not a space game. It's kind of abstract, actually, cartoony.
Is it a game that can be played with other people?
You can play it with a second player. I obviously have not done that, but it looks like a neat experience. I definitely would like to start playing games again with people, but for right now, like, the most accessible board games that I can play are typically solo games.
Oh yeah. Well, of course, with all the pandemic and everything, we fell into this world of the virtual board gaming, just trying to get people together virtually, even though if you're far away, right?
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot of opportunities to play board games online with people. So, even before Arion, I've been trying to do that as well. Hence the board game online event.
So, for me, the last board game that I've played was Escape: The Curse of the Hidden Temple. It's a great 10-minute roll your dice, escape the temple type game. It's real time. You're not really taking turns, and you're trying to steal artifacts and gems with people on your team. So everyone's working together to escape the temple together. So
yeah, I think that was actually the first real-time game I had ever played in my life. I was like, this is different. Like, we're just trying to chuck dice as fast as we can.
Pretty much. You're trying to chuck dice, making sure it doesn't fall off the table, and everyone's trying to do all these like little quirky curses, and you have to just really. There's no time to sit down and look at your phone or daydream, because you're pretty much in it for those 10 minutes. And
it's a very intense 10 minutes.
the music is always pumping, is always heart racing as well. All right, so let's talk about this event. The event was for you to host a board game virtual weekend with you, friends, family, whoever wants to jump on, even strangers. I think you put it on your Facebook, and sometimes on Facebook, everyone's not really our friends. So tell me how you came up with this idea. What was that like for you?
Right. So, I think at the top of June, there was, this is in the middle of a pandemic, and I was talking with a bunch of friends, and just, left and right, things are getting canceled. Events that were supposed to happen later in the year were getting either postponed or just canceled outright. And I felt like I wanted to do something where people had a weekend to look forward to. On top of that, I enjoy board games a lot, and I think when you hear the term gaming, you typically always think of video games or PC games or mobile games, but board games is kind of like on the further end of that. And so I definitely wanted to expose people to board games, and that even though we're all social distancing, there are still possibilities to get that board game feeling out there. And so if you put those two ideas together, you get this idea that, hey, why don't we just do a weekend where we play a bunch of board games online? I'll host it, I'll teach it. I'm gonna put it out there. Whoever wants to join can join, and it'll be a different experience for people that are not super board game aficionados like myself or yourself. And so that's where the idea stemmed from. And from that point, it was just, getting all the pieces together and getting people to be interested in it, really.
The events that you're talking about getting canceled, are you talking about like the conventions, or is this like your birthday weekend that you normally do? Like what,
Yeah.
what was the inspiration like from there?
Yeah, so it was just whenever I have casual conversation with friends, everything's getting canceled. Conventions getting canceled. Raves getting canceled. Parties getting canceled. My own birthday party getting canceled. So, and it's understandable, right? We're at a point where we can't be, or not too many people can be in the same space. So, I felt like because all these things are just getting canceled, there's nothing to look forward to anymore, And so if I told myself, if I could just host an online event, it might not get a lot of traction, but it's something for some people out there, and that was the main goal of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think something about board games is that it's a board. We're so used to it being in person, and it's such a unique idea to host something online. Now, what did it take initially for you to set that up? Like, how was the initial setup like for you?
Yeah, so there is obviously a lot of challenges with if you think of a regular board game, right? There are a couple things you have to consider when you choose a game. What type of audience it's geared towards, how many players can be involved, can people just jump in and out, which is not typically the case. So all these different things. But then you have to take into account the different online factors. Like how do I host a board game online? Like that's not a very easy thing to think about. And so just combining all those different things, I had to find alternatives of making that work. And so if I look at all the board games that I hosted that weekend, let's take probably the most popular game that I hosted, which was Deception Murder in Hong Kong. It's a social deduction game where, there's a detective team trying to investigate a murder, and there's one person giving clues, and there's two people on the bad people team trying to, that we're the actual murderers. If we take that game and think about it, like everyone just has a bunch of cards that they're looking at, right? And the most important part of those cards is the text. So as long as there's a way for me to give the clues, and there's a way just to maybe just display the text and everyone's names next to them, then essentially you have the same game. You have the same feel of, trying to find the bad or the bad people, and the bad people are just trying to hide amongst the good people. So it's just a matter of finding that alternative, right? And that was the hardest challenge, though. Figuring out what games would still work via an online, venue.
Yeah, I mean, with technology nowadays, we have the opportunities to play these games on Tabletop Simulator, Board Game Arena, or any of these different avenues, virtual avenues for board games. What prompted you to like really avoid those and create your own Excel spreadsheet for Deception Murder in Hong Kong?
Wait, can you can you repeat that question?
So, what prompted you to stay away from Tabletop Simulator and Board Game Arena and things like that, and then just creating your own Excel spreadsheets for Deception and other games? Yeah.
So I actually really like Tabletop Simulator, but the biggest limiting factor with it though is obviously it costs money. So things that I tried to avoid with all these different games, it has to. I tried to find games that could accommodate a lot of people. I tried to find games that didn't cost anything. So I actually did use Board Game Arena for Seven Wonders. Even though you had to sign up for an account, it's free. And Seven Wonders does accommodate up to 7 players, which is higher than the average board game, I would say. And, I also have a bunch of my own board games, like the physical copies. So if there was a way I could just point a camera at the board or the cards or whatever it is, and just stream it on Discord or Google Meet or whatever, then that's a way it could work. It's just any way to make the experience as easy and as accessible as possible for the player.
So you're trying to make it easy and accessible for the new board gamer who's trying to understand all the new rules and the new mechanics that they have to learn as well.
Right. And so obviously one of the biggest challenges with board games is because there's so many board games out there and you don't have the electronic means, you have to be able to teach it to people. And sometimes teaching can be a huge barrier of entry for board games. And so if we take like a typical Euro game that has like 30 minutes of rules and has all these different concepts, that obviously was not going to work.
Oh yeah.
So I had to find games that if I could at least do an elevator pitch for it and make it seem like, hey, no matter what your experience is, as long as you can handle, depending on the game, 5 to 15 minutes of rules, then you'll be fine. I think, oddly enough, I think one of the comparisons I make for people that have never heard of these games before that I taught that weekend was, have you heard of Catan? And they'd typically be like, yes or no. And if they say yes, I'd be like, if you can handle the rules of Catan, you can handle the rules of insert game name here.
So apparently Catan became like your baseline for whether or not someone knows board games.
Because a lot of people know Catan, but a lot of people don't know beyond Catan, right? So I use that as my baseline, and sometimes I would have to use games like, I don't know, like Monopoly or Uno for people that are really uninitiated, or even Mafia, like the game that you can play with just regular playing cards. Sometimes I had to use those as baselines whenever I pitched these games. So
so you really put yourself as the ambassador for board games whenever you came into this, right?
Yeah, actually, with a lot of the games that happened on that weekend, I think for maybe half or more than half, I wasn't even really participating as a player. It was more like I was the host or the teacher, and I was the person that just managed everything. I think one of the games, previously one time whenever I taught deception, it's easier when you're the forensic scientist, the person giving clues.
Yeah.
When the person giving clues is also the one teaching, it helps. But once everyone had understood the rules, one time I I had someone else be the forensic scientist, and all I did was distribute all the rules. And then anytime the forensic scientist wanted to put down a clue, I'd be like, okay, just verbally say it. I'll mark it on my own Discord for everyone to see, or my own stream for everyone to see. And, I'm just the host. I'm not even part of the game. I'm just here to facilitate and make sure everyone has a good time. And there were a lot of moments like that weekend. I honestly didn't mind that I wasn't a player though, because the whole point of that was for people to just have a good time. So it was all right. I guess you could say I was an ambassador.
Yeah. But that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool just to get everyone in together just to play. How do you get signups? What do you do for people signing up or to get, I don't know, people to come and play?
Yes. I was thinking about it, right? What I could have done was just said, hey, this weekend we're going to play a bunch of board games, right? That could have been an option. The problem with that is that with board games, you have to set the player count in the very beginning, and they're typically games where you can't just jump in and out whenever you want. And so I had to, what I did to get around that was I created a sign up sheet, a Google Excel sheet, where I listed all the different sessions and all the like spots. Each session had a number of spots. You could sign up for it. So that way the player count is set. And then whenever we got closer to the weekend, I would take a session and just ask for everyone's general availability and try and pick a time. So that was the thought process behind it, because I didn't want it to be like, oh, well, if you were interested in this game, sorry, it's full and people didn't know, or hey, this game still has, or this session still has slots. We need to let's get some people in it if we can. That was the thought process behind it. I just wanted to make sure that a game had its people set before the game actually.
Yeah. And when you got people to sign up, what do you do to ensure like there was follow up to make sure that, I don't know, there were no empty spots? What do you?
Well, sometimes it was just beyond my control. A lot of the sessions were not completely full, and that was fine. I think it was just constant communication. So if I'm thinking about what I did leading up to the weekend, I first needed to see who was interested in what, and then from there, whenever I saw who was in each session, I sent out a general, hey, when are when are you free on this weekend? Like, tell me the time ranges and try to be as specific as possible. Then I would try and accommodate as much as I could, and then I set up a schedule. Once that initial schedule went out, then people would tell me, hey, this works. Hey, this doesn't work. Or hey, I'm free for other games. And so I would make those slight accommodations, but as long as there was enough people to have a game, which is typically like 2 players, then I move forward with it. So it was just a matter of displaying the schedule once I set it up, and then just having people confirm with me that yes, they were good with this time, or no, they were not.
And pretty much up to this point, you pick the games, you put up the sign up sheet, you do the setup. How was all that? Like, how does putting all that together? Like, what were some of the challenges you had with putting all that together?
Ooh, it was actually a lot, to be honest. So, picking the right games, just wait, let me restart. So I had to figure out what games were accessible enough for people to be interested in them. Then I had to put a description of what the games were about, and I had to make it sound easy enough to get into, but also somewhat enticing. Then people would sign up. Then I had to have I had to have a cutoff date. I was like, sign up by this time for whatever you're interested in. Then I sent out a form that was like, put your general availability in here, and if you're interested in anything else. I would get those results back. Then this was the hardest part. I had to cross-reference who was available for what times, as well as what session they were in. So I'd have to look at an individual session, and I'd have to say, okay, what time is everyone in this session free? and then I had to schedule that time. And so now that time is no longer available. So now I have to look at the next session and be like, okay, when is everyone in this session free? And then I have to schedule that. That was the hardest part, to be honest, because with this many people, it was just maybe 20, 25-ish people. So not a whole lot. But even with that number of people, you're going to get to a point where you can't accommodate for someone's schedule. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes it was just a matter of, this is what it is. I'm sorry. Yeah, I did my best. If you can't make a game, just let me know so I can adjust appropriately. And then if there was any session that fell below the minimum player count, to make it a fun time, then I would either ask people to sign up for it, or I would just cancel it outright because me being just one host, there's only so much time I can spend hosting games, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have to think about how long a game will last, and then I have to think about the time it takes to teach, and then I need breaks just to like recover between games. And so going into that weekend, it was just thinking to myself, how much time in the weekend how many sessions can I fit in the weekend and still have time to do all of this? So sorry, that was a bit long-winded, but
no worries. Well, what I saw was that all the games and sessions you did were pretty much back to back. If you think about it, the 20 to 25 people that you've had to join this for you throughout the whole weekend is almost like it's a classroom. It's a classroom, and it's like a whole bunch of workshops.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, it's like a leadership team building workshop that everyone's that everyone's going through. You put them through a board game workshop throughout the whole weekend. Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as long as people were willing to learn and people were like willing to just have fun, then I was down to be, I guess, the teacher or facilitator.
So what were some of the top games that were played throughout this weekend? What were some of the games that you mentioned?
So if I look at, let me look at the schedule. So whenever I set up the games, the first, due to some life circumstances, basically like an impromptu business trip I had to make, that Saturday was just purely a game called The Search for Planet X. Even though it could only accommodate 4 players, it was such a unique experience that I really wanted to share that with people, and everyone I showed it to was really enamored by it. Wait, hold on. What was the question?
What were some of the games that was being played? So Search for Planet X, for the viewers who don't know what that is, what was that about?
So the way I describe the Search for Planet X is if you took the concept of Sudoku and turned the numbers into space objects, and then it was a race to find those objects with 3 other people, you get Planet X. Okay. Oh, and if you throw in the fact that you find information through an app. And probably the most interesting about it is obviously you're searching for Planet X, hence the title, but you're also searching for other objects too. And so even though Planet X is the most important thing, it doesn't mean you're going to win by finding it. You can definitely earn points and catch up by finding other things out there. So I had 3 sessions of that on Saturday, and I remember after the first session happened, 2 of the players were like, "Can I join the next session? Is there an open spot?" I was like,
they try to bump out the next person and be like, "Hey, let me take your spot."
It's because they just really enjoyed it. I didn't mind giving up my spot and just facilitating the game for the other 2 sessions. So that one was a really big hit. But it was the only game I taught that Saturday, just because the way I had set it up was I was trying to teach the same game sessions back to back. So
okay.
I didn't want to do Planet X on Saturday and then do it again on Sunday. And I didn't want to have a break in between, so I just put all the Planet X sessions on Saturday. And that's all I had time for. And that's what fit everyone's schedules if it was on that day.
So the participants were kind of like on a conveyor belt. They were just ready to get on, to get off, get on, get off.
Yeah, so one of the things I did was I made a group chat with everyone in it, and like maybe 30 minutes to an hour before a session, I would be like, I would tag people and say, "Hey, you're coming up next. Make sure you have what you need." Because a lot of these games, in order to make those games work, you needed to have either an app or your own note sheet, or you need to have an account, or you need to be on Discord. One of the, or some combination of those things. So I was like, your time's coming up. Make sure you have everything. Hop on the Discord when the time is there. I'll keep y'all posted. And so it was just like, all right, session's done. They would hop off. Next session hops in. I'm like, all right, time to do it all over again.
You're like a TV producer. You're on in 5. You're on in 5.
Yeah. It did feel like that.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. Were there any other games that people really enjoyed that took you by surprise?
Okay, so I knew Deception was going to be a good hit because I feel like social deduction games in general are big hits with they're how do I put it? Generally speaking, I feel like a lot more people like those social deduction games. But I think all of them generally went well. So if I'm looking at the schedule here, so Planet X was all of Saturday, and then we go over to Sunday. And I held 2 sessions of Seven Wonders on Board Game Arena, which, if anyone's listening, Seven Wonders is like, it's actually, I would almost consider it kind of a classic strategy game. So it's basically card drafting. Takes place over 3 rounds, and you get past a hand of cards. All the cards do something different, but they somehow get you victory points. And so you pick one card, you play it somehow, and then you pass your hand over.
Yeah.
You get a new hand and pick a new card. And so it's just a matter of picking the best card and somehow doing that 20 plus times and getting victory points through it. People actually really enjoyed Seven Wonders, especially the people that knew it. One of the comments I had was someone had never played Seven Wonders on Board Game Arena, but they were like, I like this a lot better because Board Game Arena automates everything for you.
You can't get the rules wrong.
Yeah, you can't mess up how many coins you toss over, like, oh, do I have these resources, whatever. So I like teaching Seven Wonders because it has about the same complexity as Catan. It's totally different feeling, but around the same complexity, but it has like better strategy to it, I guess. It's less swingy than Catan to me, and it came out around the same time. Everyone that played Seven Wonders really liked it. They wanted to play it again. They wished that there was another open
Well, both of those games came out nearly at the same time, or have the same,
I think that's why I learned Catan around the same time I learned Seven Wonders, and I like Seven Wonders more because I felt more in control of my strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except when someone takes your card.
Oh yes, which funny thing, one of the players, because I was streaming that weekend, and they looked back on the stream. And so I was showing my hand just so I could explain what was going on in the game. But the other player was collecting those green science cards, which if you get a bunch of them, you can get a lot of points. And he looked back on the stream and saw me throw it away. He was like, you threw it away. How dare you?
You getting like the backlash of it after the board game week.
Yeah, I was like, oh. Yep. Oops.
Well, sorry, I can't give you those exponential million points off of the science cards for Seven Wonders.
Yeah, and so Seven Wonders was a really good hit.
That's cool. Cool. And they also got to
afterwards-
learn with a Board Game Arena app as well, the website.
Oh yeah. That was a good chance to show people that existed, that website, and that you could play a whole bunch of games, even if you didn't have a premium account, which I did.
Yeah.
I had it because I've been using it through the pandemic. But yeah, it was a good chance to show both of those things, that because Seven Wonders I think is a little more known to board gamers, and so for people to see that you could play it online, it was a big deal for some people.
Yeah.
So after Seven Wonders came Welcome To, which I always kind of hesitate teaching Welcome To people because it's newer and it's in a genre that's very hard to pitch, in my opinion. Like, how do you pitch the concept of Welcome To?
In this game,
maybe
you
can
are
help
going
me
to learn how
figure that out.
to number your houses in numerical order.
Pretty much, right? Because, you and I, we know the genre rolling, right?
Yeah.
But technically, you're not rolling any dice.
Card draw, draw and draw and draw, draw and draw.
Yeah, it's like, and then I was whenever I first described it, I put drawing right, but then I was like, oh, they might think, draw as in draw pictures, not draw
Oh.
cards. So it was honestly, Welcome to is always one I hesitate, but I mean, if I try to explain it, the idea is that the way I pitched it before was, okay, take bingo or Yahtzee. Now imagine instead of one number, you have 3 numbers, and you get to decide where to place those numbers, and each number has its own little ability, and everything you write scores you points somehow.
Yeah. Well,
And it's 20 times more interesting than bingo or Yahtzee.
well,
I have to throw that in.
it's something about like the moment you get the satisfaction, they start getting the satisfaction of getting those numbers in order and trying to get the most points. It's something about it that's very satisfying. Then they want to play it again because it's so quick, right?
Yeah. So after I got through the rules, I remember we were in the middle of the session, and to me, a board game is good when you start feeling something. And for this particular game, that something was tension of knowing like the numbers you wrote were, you regret those numbers because now you can't place what you need to. And I kept hearing like, oh, these numbers are terrible, or oh, Ryan, draw better cards, or oh no, I messed up. And as funny as those moments were, to me it was like, oh, that means it's an indicator that people are invested in the game. And then anytime someone is like, oh, I finished this goal and I'm the first one, everyone else is like, what? How'd you do that? So to see everyone on that session have those expressions, I always worry with all these games, I'm worried if people are going to like it or not. But Welcome to especially, because it's so different from anything you've ever played before, at least for people not used to board games. And so to see that people really enjoyed Welcome to, I was really happy, actually. And the thing is, Welcome to, technically speaking, it can accommodate a near infinite number of players.
People.
Yeah.
A million people.
I've actually seen a 100-person Welcome to tournament before.
I would like to join a 100-person Welcome to, and just to see, man, I want to at least try to beat. It's like that's like the battle royale of board games right there. It's who can be at the top after you get the same cards, writing down the same answers throughout this whole thing.
Yeah. So that was cool. I was very happy with that. I always like teaching Welcome to as well because for me, I like the kind of more strategy type games versus like social deduction or just, I guess, Ameritrash. So to see people get into it, it's not that hard once you know how it works, and it doesn't play long. It accommodates a lot of people, and me personally, I think a lot of people felt this way too. You walk away and you're like, man, I could have done so many things better. I want to try again.
Yeah.
I think that's it's like one of the key things of a good board game, when you have that feeling of, I want to try this again because I know I can do better.
Well, you mentioned about the people's reactions are the players' reactions when they were playing the board game. What were some of the other responses that you got about game night, the general overall responses that people mentioned about having a game night with you? Or game weekend with you?
Yeah, I think, I haven't even talked about the other two that really got a lot of reception, but I think overall, just the fact that I was able to hold something like that, the general sentiment was it was very positive. People just generally liked it, and I had a few messages afterwards that said, "Thank you so much for like hosting this. Thank you for putting this on. Really appreciate you doing this." That was the general sentiment, and I mean, I haven't fully asked for honest feedback yet, but I think generally speaking, people had a good time. I don't think there was anyone that really complained about anything that went on. We did have a few technical difficulties, and granted, there's a lot of things I would, like if I did this again in the future, there's a lot of things I would personally want to change up just to make the experience better. But overall, I think because for a lot of these people, they've never experienced something like that, it was very positive. And honestly, that's all I could ask for people to have a good time.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that because my next question for you is if you were to do something different next time, what would you do?
Oh, I see. So I think looking at it, some of the things I thought about after the weekend, I definitely wanted to make sure my streaming equipment was more in check. I definitely could have used my desktop for streaming because my laptop just could not handle the number of screens on going on at once. Because I had one for OBS for streaming, and then I had my browser up for Facebook Live streaming, and then I had to stream the screen for some people on Discord, and then I have a separate camera aimed at whatever board it is, and so it was a lot, and it took too much strain on my laptop. So, just better hardware. I think I would also, maybe I would just set the times ahead of time and then just have people sign up. One of the things I actually thought about was if I could get a second facilitator that also knows how to teach board games well and facilitate those online, we could get together and have multiple sessions running at once. So maybe some people want to do this game, and then other people want to do this game that's in a completely different sphere or genre or whatever. One facilitator runs this, another facilitator runs this. In this way, there are more opportunities to play, and you can play something that you really want to join.
You're giving your workshop participants workshop options.
Yeah. Pretty much. So it's like, hey, you can join this or you can join this, and we'll have more sessions. But it just, having a second person would open things up a little more and just give more opportunities. And I think now that I've done it once, people know what's possible.
Oh, that's cool. Maybe you'll be able to get one of those workshop participants or your board game participants to become the next teacher of the board games, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what advice would you give to other board gamers who are stuck in this pandemic, who can't leave their homes, who would like to do something like this? Like, what are some of the absolutes that you would like to tell them and for them to know?
The first thing is that it's possible. I think people think of board games, and then people think board games are meant to be played in person, which generally speaking, yes, they are, but you can still play board games while accommodating for the current situation. And as long as you have the means as well as the patience to do it, then it's definitely possible. I think the biggest, in terms of actually pulling it off, like successfully pulling it off, you have to have some kind of webcam, like a separate webcam, not one that's attached to your laptop. You have to have something to suspend the webcam. You have to have a good internet connection, because most of these worked only because I was able to stream what my webcam was looking at, and so I actually had to make sure that my connection was wired, because wireless can be really inconsistent.
I see.
You have to make sure that you can really properly teach a game, because to know how to play a game is different from knowing how to teach it. Very different, actually, because I've seen some teaches where they've been so bad that a player just doesn't want to play again. And so you have to be especially good, because in person it's already hard. But when you do it online, when people can look at their phone or switch browsers or not pay attention, or get frustrated more easily without having the repercussions of being in person, there's a lot of things where they could just not want to play. So there's that too. But if you can get past all these things and make sure everything is just in place, then you have a good opportunity to show people that board games online is possible. Not only possible, but fun to be a part of.
Do you have advice for the person who is either nervous or scared to host their own virtual board game day, night, weekend?
I think nervousness, huh? I think you have to remember that if you're the host, you're kind of providing a service to people, and I think at the end of it all, people are going to really appreciate it. Of course, you want to make sure you're doing it well so people have a good time, but at the end of it all, you're putting on something that maybe people wouldn't normally have access to, and there's a good feeling with that. I think the other thing is you just got to be confident. Yeah, like practice teaching. I think that's the biggest thing, because if you're the host, you're probably also going to be the teacher. So if you can do maybe a practice teach, like what would you say to teach this game? Maybe even record yourself doing that teach. That's going to help you a lot. If you're nervous, that is, like, it'll help you a lot, but it'll also help you nail down the rules explanation. Because like I said, teaching a board game can be difficult for some people. And to get across the information you need to, and then adding the barrier of having to do it over the internet, that's important to get past. But yeah, just having the confidence to put yourself out there, and then knowing that people will generally walk away glad that you did it. I think that helps get over people that might be nervous hosting something like that.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, look, as we're wrapping up in our podcast interview for today, are there any other final words, thoughts that you'd like to share about this event that you held?
I'm so glad I did it, honestly. I didn't even go into like two other games, Wavelength and Deception, but I think overall, like, I'm actually really encouraged to do it again. I most likely will set something up like that again, just because there were so many positive emotions that came out of this, and I think the pandemic isn't going to be ending anytime soon. I don't feel like, and so I personally, maybe putting out another event, it'll just give the chance for people to look forward to something once again. But now that people have seen what's possible, there's more I could potentially do. I could host different games. I could open it up. I could, I don't know, expand how much time how many sessions we can host. There's a lot of possibilities. And I think the biggest thing was going into this, I had no idea if this was going to work, to be honest. Like, leading up to the weekend, I was just like, oh my gosh.
You might just shoot from the hip. You're just shooting from the hip, and you're just like, well, we're going to roll the dice. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, because it's just like, oh my God, if I set these times wrong, the schedule's going to be pushed back. What if I run into technical difficulties? What if someone doesn't get it and everyone's held up? Like, all these different things. But for it to just happen is a blessing in and of itself. And so, yeah, I'm inclined to do this again someday. So,
That's
we'll see. We'll see.
That's cool. That's cool. I think quickly, just to share about my brief experience with you, I could only join for one session throughout that weekend that you had, and it was the Welcome To session. And I think during that time, either your house blacked out from the storm or your internet went out. It was either one of those two things.
Oh yeah, the internet outage.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So what's really cool was that we had people. You knew you had people supporting you because people just stayed there. They were really patient. But then you got myself and another person within the room who knew the rules to Welcome To. As you were in the middle of you explaining it, we kind of just stepped in a little bit just to continue explaining those rules as well. So having that backup and having that support, it's really cool to see in the board gaming world.
Yeah, I thought about that too. I was like, oh man, while I was dealing with the internet outage, I thought in my head I probably should just ask Dat or Peter or someone that knew the rules already to like step in. And then when I hopped on, y'all were already y'all had already stepped
about
in.
It's like you planned for us to be there just to test us in our teaching skills. Yeah, but thing is, by doing that, you see that happen in real life as well. At board game conventions, someone's walking by, you're staring into the rule book, someone's like, hey, you need some help with that, because they want to make sure that you have a great experience. And I think overall we want everyone to have a great experience playing these new board games, especially if they're new to it.
Yeah, I think I look at the board game community in general, or like just people involved with board games, and I find it to be a lot more welcoming than other communities. Like if I think of all the different video games or PC games, I feel people get really competitive or really cutthroat or really toxic even. But I look at the BGG forums or at board game conventions, and people, I feel like overall people are more willing to give their thoughts or be more helpful. And that's one of the reasons I really appreciate board games. It's more welcoming in general.
Well, Ryan, look, again, thank you very much for sharing your experience about hosting a workshop board game weekend with you, your friends, and your family. And it's really cool to see that. We encourage anyone who's listening and even watching this to host your very own virtual board game weekend or just a board game night virtually, and let us know how your experience is. We hope that all of this information helps out. For anyone who's interested for more content from the BoardCast network, where we play board games, we have interviews, we have podcasts, tutorials, learning more about the reviews of different games, feel free to subscribe to us, follow us, hit the like button, and even make sure you turn on the notifications and bells and all that fun stuff. So, again, my name is Datwin, and we have...
And Valdez.
We would like to thank you again for joining us for this podcast interview for the BoardCast network. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Oh yeah, no problem. Thank you for jumping on, and more great content to come. All right, bye everybody.